Okay, we're going to finish up today with the guides for holes 7 through 9. On this hole 7, you have a significant amount of tailwind here, so if you do have a power 5 ball, you can go ahead and try and drive the green, as I did here. I used the Berserker with full top, full left. It pushes it a significant margin to the right, so if I would have started my target zone a little bit further left, then I think that would have worked out a lot better, but again, that's only to do if you have a power 5 ball. Most of the time, instead of doing that, you can hit this drive, which is much easier. You can go full left with a spin 3 ball and 3.5 to 4 bars of topspin. I think I'm going to end up going with 3.5, as you'll see when I show you my second shot here, because it put 4 bars of topspin put us right in between max and mid distance for our thorn, and I would rather, just to keep it simple, have a max distance for our second shot. Alright, here is that second shot. I do like the thorn approach here. We have a slight tailwind and some crosswind, but as you can see, it does put us right in between our mid and max adjustments, which ends up kind of being funky because I've said before, but I don't use any wind apps, so I'm just kind of doing all this math in my head as I'm going. When you're lining up with this slight crosswind, I try and have the second bounce be about 1.5 squares behind the pin, and with that push to the right, if you have a higher level thorn, you'll have a longer ball guide and be able to see a little bit better where it's going. But with only a 6 here, I just kind of am assuming it's going to push it a little bit to the right. So I add 15% here. In practice this week, I determined this would be a plus 15% adjustment. So I'm playing it about a 10.1, but being right in between mid and max, I don't quite adjust enough. Kind of disappointing, but if we get that one, just do 3.5 bars of topspin, should be better and put us right at max distance. All right, next up we've got the final par 3 of the course. Here's how I'm going to be playing this one. It's a plus 30% adjustment, and I think that if we go with our target, the center of our target, just in line with the right side of the bunker there, right in front of it, and the blue ring just in front of it, I think we're going to end up going with 5 bars of backspin and 3 bars of spin to the left. And then we're going to make a plus 30% adjustment, and it's in between mid and min distances, so it's going to be at about 1.15 rings per mile per hour of wind. So I end up going about 9.1 rings here, and it's a good shot, but pushes us just a little bit to the left. So for my next shot with my other account, I knocked off 1/2 bar of side spin down to 3. And there was a little bit more wind on the second one. It jumped up from 8.3 to 9.6. So the variance on the wind here on these holes seems to have been kicked up a notch. But I think that's the same way we're going to go about it. It ends up being just left again. I think it's because the wind here got kicked up just a bit, but adding 30%, so we add about 2.9. So we're playing it as an 11.5. No, sorry, a 12.5, but again, in between mid and mid adjust, so we only end up going about 10.5 rings or so, and ends up being all right, just a little bit left of the cup once again. I think, like I said, I think it's because of that increased wind. So with a little bit lower on the wind side, that 8.3, I think 3 bars is going to be the number, but if it is a little bit more like this, then I think we might even knock that down to 2.5. Okay, now we have hole number 9. We do have a significant tailwind here, which kind of encourages us to do some silly things, which I go ahead and do some silly things. My thought was, well, it's a qualifying round, might as well give this a whirl. It is about a plus 10% for your wind, so with this much, I decided to go with a power 5 ball, full top, and see if I could bounce it off of this first fairway up onto the second one and then over. It doesn't quite work out, but it works all right. It ends up being a decent enough shot, and we're able to get an eagle still, but just trying to see what might be possible with this strong amount of tailwind here. So like I said, adjust 10% increased for your wind, and smashed it up there. It catches the rough, which ends up being a safe play, but probably not going to want to try that too often. It's kind of risky and a little bit silly, like I said, but just, it's a qualifying round, so we're just going to try and see what might be possible. This is the route that we're probably going to play. What we want to do here is have a double bounce on the first fairway up onto the second fairway, and I'll show you why we want to do that instead of just overpowering going up onto the second. You don't want to carry through that second fairway and into the rough. From that position, it's still possible to get up towards the green and have a wedge for eagle, but but it's much simpler if you just lay up just a little bit. You don't have to overpower, and you double bounce it up there, and then you'll have a sniper in for your second shot. My opponent here did overpower and use full topspin and single bounced up there and went through, so that's what I want to show you here. I'm going to show you his shot. He's playing with an Apocalypse and a Titan, and I'm assuming he went with full topspin. I'm not quite sure, but he overpowered it and single bounced it up onto the second fairway, and then it rolls through and into the rough. So he was able to hit a Nirvana up just shy of the green and have a wedge in for an eagle, but we want to be safe and give ourselves the best chance for an albatross possibility here. Alright, even though we're not probably going to be playing this shot again, I figured I would give you guys a look at what it ended up looking like. So we have our long iron in. I end up going with the full backspin with the B52 here. The adjustment I figured would be about plus 10%. Because we're just under max distance, I just decided to play it as a max distance just to see what would happen. So I played it there, and the wind ended up blowing it quite a bit further than I expected it to. And so even though I was underneath I was just playing at a max distance, even though it wasn't. It ends up blowing it much further. So that did help us with our second shot, help us when we were trying to adjust for the second one, because I knew that plus 10% wasn't going to be quite enough. So when we have this wood in here, it is significantly downhill. So instead of doing a plus 10%, I switched to a plus 20, and that worked out all right. Gave us a pretty good shot for an albatross here. But we are going to have to double bounce it, lay up on this first fairway, and then make our 20% adjustment to try and get up there to the pin. End up coming up, as you can see there, it's just a little bit downhill. We do end up coming up just a little bit to the right of the hole, but it's still a good shot, and hopefully we can dial that in by the weekend round and be able to make an albatross. So like I said, we add 20% there, just under max distance, going with 9.6 rings, and the shot goes up and hit it perfect. So that's always what we want to do, give us the best shot for an albatross, and it comes up just a little bit to the right, but that's okay. So hopefully we'll dial that in and have a good score for the weekend. Good luck, guys.